Welcome to Crazy Talks with Wise People, a show that features successfully crazy people with wise ideas. Today, we've got a very lovely guest. She's British, she lives in Devon. She's a scriptwriter, structure, genre, and character specialist. Mm, You'll be hearing more about that. So, for those of you who are interested in script writing, filmmaking, this is for you. Now, let us all welcome our lovely guest, Lucy Hay. Yay.
Thank you very much for having me, Mary. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for coming. I know
Mhm.
that you're very busy, but you took time for this podcast.
I love podcasts. I think they're a really great, accessible way for people to learn new stuff. And also, obviously, there's narrative podcasts now. I mean, there's a podcast for everybody. So I think they're brilliant. So I love appearing on podcasts.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored.
Mhm.
Now, let's start with would you like to greet our audience first before we start our questions?
Sure, sure.
All right. Mhm.
Sorry, what would you like me to
How would
say?
you like to greet our audience first?
Okay, sorry, I missed out the word. You've got
Mm,
a little bit of drop out there.
mm,
Yes, so I would love to say hi to your audience. I'm a script editor and screenwriter. I'm also an author as well. I've written a
mm,
lot of non-fiction about writing. I actually released a book with my friend, a film producer called Clive Frayne, only a month, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's called Don't Screw Up Your Story. So
oh,
it's all about writing novels and writing screenplays and ensuring that you don't screw up your story. Is very much a baked bean type of title. I've also written novels as well. I write crime fiction as my real name and as Lizzie Fry. And I also run the
mhm,
site bangtowrite.com, where I started my career as a script reader. And over time, I became a script editor. So, script editors are the people that help facilitate writers, basically. I work with writers on their concepts and their characters and their structure or plots, whatever you want to call it. And also, help them with their submissions and think about ways in which writers can write about what they love, but
mm,
also write about things that other people will love as well. Because, of
mhm,
course, one of the worst things we can do as writers is
mm,
write solely for ourselves,
mm,
because writing is a communication. And we have to involve our target audience or our target reader, whatever you want
mm,
to call that,
mm, mm,
and give them what they want, whilst at the same time writing what we want as well.
mhm,
Because a lot
mhm,
of writers go, well, if I think about the reader or if I think about the viewer,
mm,
um, that feels like selling out. And to which I
right.
always reply, no, it's selling. And that's what professional writers do. We have to be able to sell our stories to our target readers, to our target audiences, because otherwise we're just doing it for ourselves. And there's nothing wrong
Right.
with writing for
Mm,
ourselves.
mm,
If you want to be a hobby writer and write solely for you,
mm,
that's perfectly valid. I don't have an issue with that. But a
mhm,
lot of writers come to me saying, I want people to read my books. I want people to watch my movies or my short
mhm,
film.
mhm,
How do I do that? And the first thing that we have to do is think about who we're writing for.
mhm.
That's all it's about.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we should remember that, especially writing for commercial, that's what you call commercial writing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely.
So what sparked you? You seem to be very passionate. You've written a lot of novels and books. So you seem to be very passionate with writing. And what sparked your passion into
Oh,
this
ooh,
film industry, writing books, industry?
That's a really good question. And I think I'm going to be really boring and say that I've just always been fascinated by writing and creativity and filmmaking. I remember being a
Mm,
child and looking up at my mother's bookshelf. She was a
mm,
big
mm.
reader and
Ah.
had a bookshelf with lots and lots of books on it.
Mhm.
And quite a few of them were crime and thriller. She was really into those things. She also liked horror as well, and a variety of other kind of literary fictions as well. And I remember looking at this bookshelf. It was a really big bookshelf, or maybe I was just really small. I don't. But I remember it being an enormous bookshelf and thinking, oh, I can't have been more than 6 or 7, and looking at these books and going, one day my name is going to be on those books. Absolutely. And also, I just loved movies, I loved television, and I was just fascinated by how they were created and what must go into it. I mean, I was a big Muppets fan, Jim Henson
Mm,
fan.
mm,
Loved
mm,
as a child, and of course that
mm,
was really his kind of golden period, sort of like the 80s.
mm, mm,
And
mm.
I just loved the Muppets, and I wanted to know
Ah,
everything I could
ah.
about the Muppets. And
Mm.
so I would spend a lot of time trying to get information about that.
Mm,
Of course, in the 90s, when I was, growing up, that was around the time that the technology changed again. We had cute
mm,
CGI and things like that. So
mm,
as I was growing up, there were so many things happening, like blockbuster movies, Muppets, puppetry,
mm,
CGI. There's
mm,
so many massive changes. Satellite television was another
mm,
one. Publishing changed as
mm,
well, and then
mm.
as I became an adult, the Kindle was invented.
Right. Mm,
There's been so many amazing technological changes and the way that the audiences and readers kind of relate to
mm.
stories as well over
Right,
like
right.
20 to 40 years.
Mm,
It's
mm,
been wildly changed. So I feel very privileged to have grown up in that kind of era. And
yes.
especially because when I was a small child, you couldn't get a lot of information about screenwriting or creative writing
Mm,
and things like that. And that
right.
all changed over the last 20 years in particular. So I just became completely obsessed with all of it, and I just loved it so much, and I just knew I had to be a part of it somehow.
Mm. I like that journey. I think your mother was the key figure.
Yeah, possibly. I mean,
And the environment where
mhm,
you evolved.
mhm,
Yes. Very
mhm,
interesting story.
mhm.
And what are some of the biggest roadblocks you faced when starting out?
For me personally, I had a lot of problems as a young person. I was a pregnant teenager and I lived in poverty and I didn't have anyone helping me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a very harsh time to be a teenage parent. Politically, there was a lot of shame and stigma thrown
Mm-hmm.
down on us, and
Mm-hmm.
which still continues to this day, which is
Mm-hmm.
not right in my opinion, because teenage parents, at the end of the day, they've had the baby. We can support them or we can crush them, and it's not, they don't get enough help is my opinion, and that's why I do a lot of work in that area trying to kind of reach teenage parents, and I like to work with organizations and stuff like that to help them, because it's not all teenage parents are teenage parents because they're stupid or reckless or
You're right. Yeah.
there's lots of very complex reasons behind
Mm-hmm.
teenage parenthood that sometimes kind of don't get noticed, because people are so caught up in the stereotypes and the stigma,
You're
which is, I
right.
think that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big problem for me. I lived in a rural area. I didn't live near London. The internet hadn't really taken off yet. Social media hadn't anyway. There was blogs existed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Facebook didn't exist, all that kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to get traction with a blog, trying to build your platform online. It took a long time, and it was problematic because a lot of people said, oh, people who are coming in on the internet rather than working in the industry directly in places like London and LA are
Mm-hmm.
not real people in the industry, all this kind of
Yes, yes.
stuff. Yeah.
I
So there was a
empathize with that.
yeah, there was a lot of barriers, but most of them were to do with like poverty and social issues and industry issues. And that made me want to kind of reach other writers and help them and demystify the process because trying to figure out what to do at the beginning of my career was really, really tough. But I was lucky
Mm-hmm.
enough to meet a few people who were really helpful to me, and they didn't have to be. But they were really helpful to me and showed me the ropes. So that made me want to kind of go out and show other people the ropes and say, okay, you don't live in LA, you don't live in London, you've maybe got challenges like poverty or maybe neurodiversity, disability, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, but you
Mm-hmm.
can carve a niche for yourself in this industry. You can. And that's what I've
Yeah.
been doing for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I can empathize with you. Just maybe 1 minute of my story.
Mhm.
I haven't been employed. I just worked online and earned my money online, and my travel lectures just happened after about 5 years of doing online business.
Mhm. Mm.
And then some people would call me like jobless.
Mm. Yep.
They'd call me like jobless. They'd call me like a simple housewife, but they didn't know I was already earning money through the internet.
Mm. Mm.
That's yeah. But anyways, that's why after during COVID, I I tell everyone like, okay, so now everyone is a housewife.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Exactly.
everyone started to work from home.
Absolutely. I often say that I am a home worker or a Zoomer
Mm.
BC, but
Mhm.
instead of before Christ, before COVID.
Yeah, before COVID. Oh, thank you for that sharing. What's been your most rewarding experience in this career?
Ooh, I think every time a writer kind of tells me that they felt inspired by my journey
Mm,
and undertook their own journey. Every time that happens, it really kind of just fills me with joy because I see that as my purpose. There's a lot of people walking around who feel very unfulfilled and they're not really sure what they want to do next. And they've got that kind of fire ready to go, but they just don't know where to put it.
mm,
And so if I can reach those people and show them that there is a destiny, there is a way into the industry because so many of these websites and places and schemes and contests and stuff like that, it seems like a very closed shop to a lot of people
mm,
even though there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's
mm,
almost like when I first started, there weren't really any opportunities because the internet just hadn't really taken off in that regard yet. So
mm.
just knowing where to start was really, really hard.
Partners at business side.
Sorry.
It's fine. So knowing where to start was really, really hard back then. But now there's so many choices. You kind of get choice paralysis, don't you? Because you're just like, what is the right way? What is
Mm,
the way that would work for me? How do I
mm,
do these things?
mm,
So I see myself as almost like a guide kind of thing. I want to show what's possible and say, there's no right way to break in
mm,
the industry. There's
mm,
only ways that are right for you.
mm,
And I want to kind of point out to people these possibilities and then to actually see them pick up those possibilities and kind of run with them is just is
mm.
it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. So you must have written a lot of books. You must have written a lot of screenplays. What's your favorite screenplay and what's your favorite book?
So I have written a lot of screenplays, but most of them are adaptations of my books. So
Ah.
I think for me, I've still got a special place in my heart for this one, The Other Twin,
Uh-huh. All
because
right. Uh-huh.
that was my first crime novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved writing this one. And it's an LGBTQ plus mystery set in Brighton here in the UK. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all about a young woman whose dies, and she believes that her sister's been murdered. And she ends up going down the rabbit hole into a mystery because basically her sister has left behind a blog which could implicates every single person they know in
Mm-hmm.
her death, including their own parents
Mm-hmm.
and the protagonist's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really fun project to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I got the book optioned by a production company. And
Mm-hmm.
just before COVID, I wrote a screenplay adaptation of that. And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, and COVID happened and it ran into development hell and it hasn't got out the other side yet. But I
Mm-hmm.
haven't given up hope that one day it will make it out the other side. And I think my other favorite book is probably this one, which is called Proof Positive, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a YA novel, and it's all um
A proof
about
positive
proof positive.
intersection series. Ah,
That's right.
yeah,
And it's
looks
all about
interesting.
thanks. It's all about a pregnant teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically she at the beginning of the book she discovers she's pregnant, and then there's five different scenarios play out in that intersection. Of she keeps the baby but gets rid of the boyfriend, she has an abortion, she has the baby but keeps the boyfriend, she gives the baby up for adoption, so all
Mm-hmm.
the things that
Mm-hmm.
could possibly happen next.
Mm-hmm.
And then we re go back and find that none of them have happened, and that she has just been thinking about it, or not
Mm-hmm.
as the case maybe. It depends how you see it. Maybe it really did happen, but it's all like sliding doors and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been optioned as well, and they just did the cast for it, and hopefully it should go into production soon. So it'd be lovely to see that one on screen.
Oh, we would love to see that on screen as well.
Hmm.
Keep us posted.
Yeah, yeah, I will
Yeah,
definitely keep you posted. Yeah.
yeah, keep us posted. And what lessons you've learned from, have you ever had some failed projects? And
Oh
what
yeah.
lessons have you learned?
Hmm. I mean, projects fail all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think people think that when you get an option on a on a screenplay, or you get your novel adapted, that once you've signed on the dotted line, everything will come through and
Mm-hmm.
everything will be fine. But
Mm-hmm.
I've actually sold a lot of screenplays and a lot of ideas and a lot of stuff that has just
Mm-hmm.
gone nowhere. And
Mm-hmm.
and because sometimes people say, "Oh, well, you don't really have any movies or anything like that." It's like, no, I don't. But that doesn't
Yeah,
mean I
yeah.
didn't write them. That doesn't mean I didn't get paid for them.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said to me once in the industry that if you get 10% of your projects made,
Mm-hmm.
you are doing well. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's about right, because at the
Yeah.
moment I'm at about 3%.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been as a script editor, I've been involved in a lot of produced projects, a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been very, very privileged to work on a lot of movies and short films that are out there in reality. As a screenwriter, I haven't had quite the same success, which is pretty standard, to
Have
be
you
honest.
tried acting? Because you're good looking.
Thank you. No, I haven't tried acting. I don't think it's really for me. I think you have to have quite a lot of confidence. And whilst I am quite confident in like my knowledge, and when I'm doing like workshops, and I'll do appearances at events like London Screenwriters Festival, I feel quite comfortable
What
being on
workshops do
stage.
you do?
Oh, I do a lot of workshops. I do workshops and talks for events like London Screenwriters Festival, and I've appeared at Bournemouth Writing Festival and a variety of other festivals and literary events as well. I've moderated panels of writers, things like that. Also on Zoom events. I've done quite a lot of Pride events because I'm yeah, as a bisexual woman, I'm often the token bisexual on various panels for Pride
All
and
right.
a variety of stuff like that. So I feel very comfortable going on stage virtually or in reality, but I don't think I could pretend to be someone else. My youngest child is really into acting. She's genuinely really good at it, and she loves dancing and performing and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think acting is for me.
Hmm. So you're more into writing.
Yeah, yeah, I see myself as more of a kind of facilitator. I love to see writers kind of work on their own projects and come up with their own concepts and all that kind of stuff. I love that part of it. Because I'm a script editor and I'm working with screenwriters mostly, but I also work with novelists these days as well, because I've
Mm,
written, I think, 10 novels now.
mm,
I've got two novels going out submission soon. So I've got 12 novels and four non-fiction books, I think it is.
mm,
So around 15, 16 books. I can't even remember
mm,
how many I've written. So,
mm,
but I love writing books because it means I can just go off and do my own thing.
mm,
Whereas when you're a screenwriter, you depend on other people to make things and stuff
mm,
like that and collaborate with you, which
mm,
I love. And I love script editing. And I'll definitely be doing that for many more years yet. But screenwriting, I do write some scripts and I'm very interested in adaptation of my novels and other people's novels as well.
mm,
So I dare say I'll be doing some more screenwriting in my future. But for the last 10 years, I've been really focusing on my novels and they're doing quite well. You know, I publish under my real name, Lucy V. Hay, but I also publish under the pseudonym Lizzie Fry as well. As you can see, one's behind me
yeah,
here,
yeah,
the cover.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love writing novels. It's really fun. You can kind of immerse yourself in the world. You're doing most of it by yourself. Obviously, you have to work with an editor at later drafts, especially when the book is sold and things like
Do
that.
you
Um,
internalize all the characters? Like while you're, like
I
while
mean, everything I do as a script editor, I basically do in my novels. I don't really see a huge difference between screenwriting and novel writing. Obviously, novels are like a lot longer than a screen.
mm, mm,
Everything that I learned about characters, about concepts, about plot in
mm,
screenwriting, I
mm,
just moved into my novels basically because novels need to be visual. They need to have,
yeah,
nuanced characters. The
yeah,
plot needs to be nice and lean. The
yes.
genre needs to be
Mm,
discernible. All the
mm,
things that I learned
mm,
in screenwriting, I just took into my novels basically.
mm. Your novels must be interesting. If
Yeah.
you if you were to describe your novel, I mean, compare your novels to a food.
Okay.
What kind of food would your novels be? One of those that I interviewed said steak or rare steak. And well, how about you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it depends what I'm writing as. If I was writing as Lucy V. Hay, I
Mm-hmm.
would say that I think it's probably because I write mostly in the domestic noir space. So people who
Mm,
live in ordinary homes and something terrible happens and they have to figure
mm,
things out.
mm,
So in that case, I would say it's probably like a Sunday roast. It's a nice kind of,
mm.
a nice selection of things. You got your vegetables, you got your meat, you
Yeah,
got the
yeah,
gravy,
yeah.
nice rich
Mm,
flavors, all of
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But
Mm-mm.
very straightforward and simple, but fulfilling. That's that.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would call my Lucy V. Hay novels. If I was talking about my Lizzie Fry
Go
novel,
for it. Ah,
I would say
Lizzie Frey.
probably the plate is burnt and like all the food is dark charcoal and you couldn't possibly eat it because it's just because in my Lizzie Fry books very frequently what happens is terrible things happen and the characters are nasty people and things get out of control and everything gets completely bananas very, very quickly. So I would say, yeah, probably burnt food, but in a good way, literary, because
Yeah.
it's very I often write about horrible people who do terrible things, but it makes you think. So, and because I'm really interested in things like psychology,
Psychology, yeah.
how psychopaths are made, and
Ah,
why things get out of control and why people behave badly and things like that. So yeah,
ah.
any type of food, but it's been burnt.
It's very big contrast.
Yeah,
Like
I would say
one is
so.
very pleasant and one is a little bit I should say, is it
Yeah, my
like
Lizzie books can be,
is it like a horror or something? The
some
other
of them
one is
have horror
horror.
elements. Yeah, I wrote a book a couple of years ago called The Good Mother as
Mm.
Lizzie Fry, and that is a very horrifying book. In fact, people sometimes write to me and say, "What's wrong with you?" Because it that one opens in a very, very shocking, very, very nasty way. So quite a few of my regular readers read that one and were like, "Whoa, that's even worse than normal. That's crazy."
Mm, mm,
Um, and I did, when I was writing The Good Mother, I wrote it in lockdown 3, I think it was, and I was not in a good place during lockdown. I suffer from mental health problems, and I felt very, very triggered by all the lockdowns, and I was really struggling with my mental health. And when I wrote that book, I thought, oh, it's fine. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. And then when we came out of lockdown and when I kind of got control of my mental health, I read it and was like, whoa, I can't believe I
mm,
wrote this book. But I
mm,
sent it off to my agent anyway, and I thought there's no way that would ever sell
mm,
because it's
mm,
too nasty, it's too freaky, it's too
mm,
different to what I've written before.
mm,
But it did sell, and it's got a contingent of people that feel very strongly about the book,
mm,
either in a good or a bad way, which is always interesting to see.
mm.
And something similar happened with this one as well,
A
because this
little
has
boy
got a
missing. Uh-huh.
little boy missing. Yeah, it's got a very, very divisive ending, very
Mm,
divisive, and a
mm,
very shocking ending.
mm,
And again, I wrote it in lockdown
mm,
and wasn't feeling very good and all that kind of stuff. But what I love about this book now is because it's got so many fans who say they love it because of the ending,
mm,
because it's so shocking, because it doesn't have any easy answers in it.
mm.
So, obviously, my books aren't going to be for everyone, but
Right.
that's okay. No
Yeah.
one's books are for everyone.
Right. As long as you have a niche market. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that matters. Yeah, only that matters. Okay, thank you. Um, so what's a common myth about writing?
Oh God, there's so many. There's so many. I think a common myth that really annoys me
Mm,
is it's the execution that counts.
mm-hmm,
And whilst the execution is really, really important in any book or any screenplay, movie, TV show, whatever, the
mm-hmm,
execution
mm-hmm,
is important. But if you want to sell your writing, you
mm,
have to put everything into your concept or
mm-hmm,
premise or seed of the story, whatever you want to call it.
mm,
Because if it sounds too samey,
mm-hmm,
stuff that we've already seen, people aren't going
mm,
to be interested. So there
mm,
has to be something about your concept that people go, "Oh wow, I need to learn more about it."
mm,
And when I say that, lots of writers go, "Oh, but it's the execution that counts." It's like if they don't think that it sounds interesting, they're
mm,
never going to read your book. They're never going to read your screenplay. They're never going
mm,
to watch your TV show or your movie on
mm,
Netflix. They're not going to get that far. So
mm,
the execution that counts, absolutely. But first, you have to really put everything into your concept.
mm, mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I think this is just in a nutshell. In your workshops, you would cover this lengthily, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
Mm.
hmm
Okay, so yeah, keep us posted about your seminars. I think that's so interesting, or webinars or events, writing
Yeah, no
events. That
problem.
would be
I
very
mean,
interesting.
You could actually try one out for free. I've got a little online course called The Foundations of Writing Craft, where I cover concept, characters, and structure, aka plot, in a very short little mini course online that you can sign up for. You can find it along with a load of other free resources on my website, which is www.bangtowrite.com.
Oh, I will have to write it down below. Okay, so for those of you who are interested, just click on the link that, link below and join her free workshop.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. So, and you can take it whenever you want. It only
Mm,
takes about an hour or two, and it's
mm,
very high yield. It'll take you through your ideas and give you like lots of consolidation on stuff like
mm,
characters and
mm,
plotting and things
mm,
like that. So,
mhm,
yeah, and there's also like a PDF gallery of like
mm,
feats and stuff like that that you can download
mm.
too.
Yeah. And yeah, do you use your writing career to impact society?
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
do. I write a lot on my Lizzie Fry author page about things
Mm-hmm.
like politics and social
Mm-hmm.
issues and
Mm-hmm.
psychology and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I often talk to my following about those things as well as Bang to Write. I feel very strongly about politics and about social issues and about
Mm-hmm.
utilizing writing for good. I think there
Mm-hmm.
have been writers in the social media age that are using their talents for evil. I'm not going to say
Mm-hmm.
who, but there are certain people leading crusades against marginalized people in the community, like trans
Mm-hmm.
people, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
or LGBTQ people. Also, misogynistic writers are around as well,
Mm-hmm.
and not just male ones, some female ones too. Classism, racism, all of those things. And I feel very, very strongly that the power of storytelling should be used for good, not for evil.
Right.
And I also talk a lot about accountability
Mm-hmm.
on my Facebook pages and
Mm. Are you on Facebook?
Instagram. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I should add you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I talk to my following a lot about
Mm,
unconscious bias
mm,
as activists call it.
mm, mm,
Sometimes we can rehash certain racist or sexist or
mm,
classist or stigmatizing
mm,
stereotypical things without thinking.
mm,
We have to be very careful as writers that we're communicating things on purpose, not by accident. So
mm,
I like to talk to my following about that. I wrote a book about it
mm.
called Writing Diverse Characters for Fiction TV.
Oh, oh.
So I wrote a lot about interrogating your unconscious bias and writing for good
Mm,
rather than and understanding what we're communicating. Because
mm,
sometimes a writer will write something
mm,
and then another person will come along and go, "Oh wow, this is like
mm,
got undertones of racism or sexism."
mm,
And the
mm.
writer immediately doubles down and goes, "Well, that's not what I intended.
Yeah, yeah.
You're reading too much
You're
into it."
right.
And it's like, no, they're not reading too much into it necessarily. I do accept that there are some people that make all kinds of proclamations about what
Mm,
writers are doing and they
mm,
can't back it up. That does happen.
mm,
But most of them who are critiquing, they're critiquing in good faith and saying, well, have you thought about how you've represented this person from this community or
mm,
whatever? And writers up until about 5 years ago were very resistant to this. They would say things like, well, the character came to me fully formed, and you're reading too much into it, and I'm an intuitive writer, and all this other kind of stuff. But writers are now beginning to understand that actually every story is the sum of its parts, and we can accidentally recycle bad things as well as good things.
mm,
So we need to be a little bit more careful about the
mm,
types of things that we create.
mm,
I mean, I'm not saying you can't ever write anything
mm,
bad about anyone.
mm, mm.
My that would be ridiculous. I mean, I literally write novels about people doing terrible things to each other all the time. So,
Mm,
some of those characters will be gay, some of those
mm,
characters will be black, some of those
yeah.
characters will be female, male, whatever. So I'm not saying you can't write people doing bad things or being even bad people. You
Mm,
absolutely can. But you need to understand what you're doing and why there's certain minds that you need to avoid, for example.
mm. Thank you. That has been very substantial. And you have encouraged me to write again.
Oh, good.
I've just written one book, it's still on Amazon, but it's like I'm so busy doing some other things. And, speaking with you
Mhm.
worked up that energy in me again to write.
Wonderful. That's brilliant.
Ah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Congratulations to you. You're a very good encourager. Oh, yeah. So, what advice would you give to aspiring writers?
Oh, well, the first thing I would say is get rid of that word aspiring. Okay,
Mhm,
because if
mhm,
you write, you're a writer.
mm,
We don't, there are professional gardeners, but
mm,
we just call them all gardeners, don't we? We
mm.
don't say, "Oh, you're a
Yeah,
you're an aspiring gardener." You're
yeah,
just a
yeah,
gardener. If you
yeah,
garden, you're a gardener. So if you
yeah.
write, you're a writer. So
Ah,
get rid of that word aspiring, I would say.
yeah,
If you
okay.
write, you're a writer.
Mm. So I'm a writer. I'm a
Hmm.
writer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So
Own
what
it.
advice would you like to give to, I should say, starting writers?
Okay, starting writers. I think.